Commander Dudley "Mush" Morton transformed American submarine warfare in just 10 months of command, turning USS Wahoo into the most feared hunter in the Pacific before vanishing into the Sea of Japan on October 11, 1943. His revolutionary tactics, surface attacks, harbor penetrations, and relentless pursuit shattered the cautious pre-war doctrine that had crippled the submarine force, directly inspiring a new generation of aggressive commanders who would strangle Japan's supply lines and help win the Pacific War. Morton's story combines high-stakes combat, innovative leadership, and a legendary partnership with Executive Officer Dick O'Kane that produced two of history's greatest submarine aces. Dudley Walker Morton was born July 17, 1907, in Owensboro, Kentucky, the son of a coal miner. His family moved to Miami during his high school years, and in 1926 Morton entered the U.S. Naval Academy. There, the big, charismatic Kentuckian earned the nickname Mushmouth, later shortened to Mush, reportedly because his massive square jaw and prominent mouth resembled a character in the popular Moon Mullins comic strip. His heavy southern drawl and talent for spinning tall tales reinforced the moniker. Morton's 1930 Naval Academy yearbook captured his essence. Dud's ever-ready sense of humor and charming personality have made him admired of many, while a heart of gold and a vast appreciation and understanding of others have made Dud beloved of those who are so fortunate as to really know the man behind the smile. He excelled at football and wrestling all 4 years, and his physical presence, massive hands, handsome face dominated by that square jaw, would become legendary among submarine crews. After graduation on June 5, 1930, Morton served on the aircraft carrier Saratoga and the heavy cruiser Chicago before reporting to the submarine base at New London, Connecticut in June 1933. He completed submarine training that December, then shipped to the Asiatic Fleet, where he served aboard submarine tender Canopus and the S-37. During this period, Morton learned the Chinese coast intimately by sailing his personal sailboat through those waters, knowledge that would later serve him well. In Tsingtao, China, in 1936, he married Harriet Rose Nelson. By August 1940, Morton had his first submarine command, the aging USS R-5. But it was his next assignment that nearly ended his career. Placed in nominal command of USS Dolphin, an elderly submarine undergoing extended repairs at Pearl Harbor, Morton was relieved by his squadron commodore when the boat proved unfixable. This relief would normally have finished him in submarines. Instead, Captain John H. "Babe" Brown saw something in the big Kentuckian and assigned him as prospective commanding officer aboard USS Wahoo, a decision that would change submarine warfare forever. When Morton joined Wahoo in November 1942, the American submarine force was failing. Pre-war doctrine had trained submarines as auxiliaries to the surface fleet, scouts for battleship engagements rather than independent commerce raiders. Commanders were taught to attack from depth using sonar, minimize periscope exposure, and prioritize the submarine's safety over aggressive engagement. One post-war assessment was damning. Neither by training nor indoctrination was the U.S. submarine force readied for unrestricted warfare. The conservative culture ran deep. Admiral Robert English at Pearl Harbor consistently sided with the Bureau of Ordnance and blamed his sub-skippers for failures that were actually caused by defective weapons. Approximately one-third of submarine commanders were relieved in the first year for what was labeled lack of aggressiveness, though many were victims of impossible circumstances rather than timidity. Compounding the doctrinal problems was the Great Torpedo Scandal. The Mark 14 torpedo had 4 interlocking defects that masked each other. It ran 10 to 11 feet deeper than set. Its magnetic exploder caused premature detonations. Its contact exploder failed on perfect 90-degree hits. The firing pin was too heavy. And faulty gyros occasionally sent torpedoes swimming back toward the firing submarine. USS Tenosa fired 15 torpedoes at a stationary tanker. Only 2 detonated, all at oblique angles. 12 perfect shots were duds. Japanese ships entered ports with unexploded Mark 14 chas protruding from their hulls. The Bureau of Ordnance refused to acknowledge these problems, instead blaming submarine commanders for lack of initiative. Admiral Ralph Waldo Christie, who had developed the Mark 14, conducted what historians call a vendetta against skippers who slurred his torpedo. By the time Buord finally admitted the depth problem in August 1942, over 800 torpedoes had been fired in combat, more than a year's production, with a success rate of just 20%. Morton witnessed this dysfunction firsthand during Wahoo's second patrol under Lieutenant Commander Marvin G. Pinky Kennedy. Kennedy embodied the cautious approach. He declined second attacks after successful hits, failed to close with targets, and lost the respect of his subordinates and the trust of his superiors. Several wardroom members, including Morton and Executive Officer Dick O'Kane, requested transfers. Instead, Admiral James Fife decided to remove Kennedy. On December 31, 1942, in Brisbane, Australia, Morton took command. Before departing Brisbane, Morton gathered his crew and delivered words that would become legend. "Wahoo is expendable. We will take every reasonable precaution, but our mission is to sink enemy shipping. We are going out there to search for Japs. Every smoke trace on the horizon, every contact on watch will be investigated. If it turns out to be the enemy, we will hunt him down and we will kill him." Then came the remarkable offer. Any man who didn't want to follow him could request transfer within 30 minutes. No questions asked, no repercussions. Not one crew member left. Morton posted placards with bright red letters throughout the submarine. "Shoot the sons of bitches." Forrest Sterling, Wahoo's yeoman, later wrote that a new spirit arose among the crew, a feeling of confidence in the capabilities and luck of Wahoo, and the thought that she was capable of performing miracles. But Morton's most revolutionary innovation was tactical. During his PCO training, he had observed instructors making entries in notebooks while he simultaneously called angles, read ranges, gave steering orders, calculated solutions, and checked plots. The instructors, able to concentrate solely on conning, almost always arrived at better submarine maneuvers and more quickly. Morton had an idea. Over bottles of ale in a Hawaii apartment, he explained to O'Kane, few captains trusted subordinates enough to give up the periscope during attacks. The moment when a submarine commander proved himself, Morton would be different. O'Kane would man the periscope, calling ranges and bearings. Morton would run the plots and make tactical decisions. This freed the captain for strategic thinking while his executive officer handled the precision work. Junior Officer George Grider observed that this left the skipper in a better position to interpret all factors involved, do a better conning job, and make decisions more dispassionately. He added, few captains other than Mush ever had such serene faith in a subordinate that they could resist grabbing the scope in moments of crisis. Wahoo's third patrol, Morton's first in command, began January 16, 1943, with orders to reconnoiter Wewak, a Japanese supply base on New Guinea's north coast. There was one problem. No charts existed of the harbor. Motor machinist's mate Dalton Bird Dog Keeter had purchased a cheap Australian school atlas in Brisbane containing a tiny indentation labeled Wewak. Using this, the crew improvised a chart. On the morning of January 24th, Wahoo crept around Kairiru Island and penetrated Victoria Bay. O'Kane at the periscope spotted the Japanese destroyer, Harusame, getting underway, nested with several RO-class submarines. Morton ordered an attack. 3 torpedoes missed astern as Harusame accelerated. A 4th missed as the destroyer turned. Then, Harusame spotted Wahoo's torpedo wakes and charged directly at the submarine. The nightmare scenario that had paralyzed countless cautious commanders. Morton calmly told O'Kane, "Keep your scope up and we'll shoot that SOB down the throat." At 800 yards, with the destroyer's propellers roaring through Wahoo's hull, Morton fired his last bow torpedo straight down the enemy's throat. The torpedo struck amidships, breaking Harusame's back. O'Kane later wrote, "Apparently, her skipper had lost his nerve when he saw our last torpedo heading toward him and put the rudder over to try to miss it, and by swinging himself broadside to it, he signed the destroyer's death warrant." This was the first successful down-the-throat shot in U.S. submarine history, a technique previously considered suicidal, and the first American submarine penetration of a defended enemy harbor. 2 days later, Wahoo found a 4-ship convoy. What followed was a 14-hour running battle in which Morton systematically destroyed the convoy. Buyo-maru 5,447 tons, Fukuei-maru 1,901 tons, and an unknown freighter 4,000 tons. A fourth ship, the tanker Pacific Maru, escaped damaged. Morton became the first submarine commander to wipe out an entire convoy single-handed. When Wahoo surfaced to assess the damage, survivors in lifeboats opened fire, and what followed remains the war's most controversial submarine incident. Morton ordered return fire at the boats, an action later defended as self-defense, but which killed Indian POWs from the 2nd Battalion, 16th Punjab Regiment, who had been passengers on Buyo Maru. This incident likely cost Morton the Medal of Honor despite his extraordinary combat record. The patrol lasted just 23 days. Normal patrols ran 60 to 75 days, yet Morton had expended all 24 torpedoes. Wahoo returned to Pearl Harbor on February 7th with a broom lashed to her periscope shears, signifying a clean sweep, and 8 small Japanese flags fluttering below. Morton was dubbed the One-Boat Wolf Pack. Wahoo's 4th Patrol, February 23 to April 6, 1943, took her into Virgin Territory, the Yellow Sea near the Yalu River and Dairen, where no American submarine had operated. The waters averaged just 120 feet deep, dangerously shallow for a submarine with a test depth of 300 feet, but Morton welcomed the challenge. The results were devastating. Over 42 days, Morton sank 9 ships totaling approximately 20,000 tons: Zogan Maru, Hosen Maru, Nitsu Maru, Katyosan Maru, Teisho Maru. 9,849 tons, the largest kill, Takaosan Maru, Satsuki Maru, and Yamabato Maru, plus a diesel freighter. When torpedoes proved unreliable, Morton surfaced and finished targets with deck guns, the 4-inch gun, and 20mm cannons. In one memorable engagement, with his 20mm jammed, the crew threw homemade Molotov cocktails, a gift from Marines at Midway, to destroy a trawler that had tried to ram them. Pearl Harbor's response to Morton's patrol report read, "Congratulations on a job well done. Japanese think a submarine wolf pack operating in Yellow Sea, all shipping tied up." The 5th Patrol, April 25 to May 21, 1943, took Wahoo to the Kuril Islands, where Morton sank 3 more ships totaling 10,376 tons, while torpedo failures cost him at least 3 additional kills. Admiral Chester Nimitz personally boarded Wahoo at Pearl Harbor to present awards. Morton had now earned 3 Navy Crosses and the Army Distinguished Service Cross from General MacArthur. In just 3 patrols and 25 days of actual combat operations, Morton had claimed 93,281 tons sunk, more ships in less time than any other U.S. submarine commander. The relationship between Morton and O'Kane transcended typical commander-subordinate dynamics. They were 2 of a kind, aggressive, innovative, supremely confident in each other's abilities. On patrol in the Yellow Sea, they played cribbage to calm tensions. Morton dealt O'Kane a perfect 29-point hand, and that night Wahoo sank 2 freighters. A few days later, Morton dealt a 28-point hand, and Wahoo sank 3 more. Thus began the legend of the Lucky O'Kane Cribbage Board. Their tactical partnership produced unprecedented results. O'Kane's precision at the periscope, combined with Morton's strategic thinking, created an attack team that proved deadly. The arrangement also trained O'Kane for his own command, lessons he would apply spectacularly. When O'Kane left Wahoo in July 1943 to commission USS Tang, he took Morton's philosophy with him. Night surface attacks, aggressive pursuit, relentless tenacity. O'Kane's farewell was understated, but Morton's influence was profound. Learning of Wahoo's loss would later devastate O'Kane. For Tang and Dick, O'Kane had a mission of vengeance to carry out. O'Kane would command Tang through 5 patrols, sinking 33 ships totaling 116,454 tons, making her the most successful submarine in U.S. Navy history. He received the Medal of Honor for actions on October 23 to 24, 1944, when he boldly maneuvered on the surface into the midst of a heavily escorted convoy and destroyed multiple ships. Tang was ultimately sunk by her own malfunctioning Mark 18 torpedo. O'Kane survived as a POW. His Medal of Honor citation reads like Morton's tactics codified. The student had become the master. Wahoo's 6th Patrol, August 2 to 29, 1943, was a disaster. not of Morton's making. Armed with the same defective torpedoes, Wahoo entered the Sea of Japan via La Pérouse Strait. In the first 4 days, she sighted 12 Japanese vessels, attacked 9, fired over 10 torpedoes, and achieved 0 hits. Every torpedo either broached and exploded prematurely, ran erratically, or struck targets as duds. Subpac ordered Wahoo home. Morton was furious. He requested permission to return to the Sea of Japan with different weapons, a request granted. Wahoo would be equipped with the new Mark 18 electric torpedoes that lacked the steam wake of the Mark 14. The 7th Patrol began September 9, 1943. O'Kane was gone, commanding Tang. And George Grider later theorized that without officers willing to talk Morton out of things, the aggressive commander may have pushed too far. Just 45 minutes before departure from Midway, Morton unexpectedly transferred Yeoman Forrest Sterling to stenography school, a last-minute change that many crew members viewed as a bad omen. Sterling would be the only survivor. Wahoo entered the Sea of Japan around September 20th. From Japanese records, we know she sank 4 ships totaling approximately 13,000 tons: Taiko Maru, Konron Maru, Kanko Maru, and Hanko Maru. The sinking of Konron Maru on October 5th killed 544 passengers, including 2 members of the Japanese House of Representatives, an embarrassment that triggered a massive anti-submarine hunt. On the morning of October 11, 1943, Wahoo attempted to exit through La Pérouse Strait, a 25-mile-wide passage between Hokkaido and Sakhalin. Japanese shore batteries at Cape Soya spotted a surfaced submarine heading east. Artillery fire forced Wahoo to dive. What followed was 7 hours of relentless attack. Japanese aircraft spotted oil leaking from the wounded submarine. Pilots reported seeing the black conning tower through the shallow water. Surface vessels joined the assault. By noon, a bright metallic object, likely a propeller blade, was spotted in the explosions. By 13:30, the submarine had stopped moving. Attacks continued until 16:30, with over 40 bombs and 69 depth charges dropped on the site. Direct hit from an aerial bomb near the conning tower killed USS Wahoo and her 80 officers and men, including Commander Dudley Walker Morton. Morton was declared deceased January 7, 1946. He was 36 years old. For decades, Wahoo's final resting place remained unknown. In 2005, electronic surveys in La Pérouse Strait detected a submarine on the bottom. On October 31, 2006, the U.S. Navy officially confirmed the wreck was USS Wahoo, sitting upright at 213 feet depth, intact, with the fatal bomb damage visible near her conning tower. Admiral Gary Rughead called her one of the greatest fighting submarines in the history of the U.S. Navy. Morton's statistical legacy is extraordinary. 19 ships sunk, totaling 54,683 tons in just 5 patrols, 1 completely unsuccessful due to torpedo failures, over 10 months of command, the 3rd highest total among all World War II submarine commanders. Only his protege Dick O'Kane and Eugene Fluckey of USS Barb sank more. But numbers alone missed the transformation Morton wrought. Vice Admiral Charles Lockwood, who became subpac in February 1943, wrote, "When a natural leader and born daredevil such as Mush Morton is given command of a submarine, the result can only be a fighting ship of the highest order, with officers and men who would follow their skipper to the gates of hell." And they did. Lockwood catalogued Morton's firsts: first to penetrate an enemy harbor and sink a ship therein, first to use successfully a down-the-throat shot, first to wipe out an entire convoy single-handed. Commander Edward Beach added, "More than any other man, Lieutenant Commander Dudley W. Morton and his Wahoo showed the way to the brethren of the silent service." The U.S. submarine campaign Morton helped transform became the single most decisive factor in the collapse of the Japanese economy. American submarines sank 1,314 enemy vessels, 55 to 60% of all Japanese merchant losses, and 30% of warships destroyed. By August 1945, Japan's merchant marine had less than 1/4 of its December 1941 tonnage. The cost was 52 submarines lost and over 3,500 submariners killed, a 20% mortality rate, higher than any other U.S. military branch. No American submarines entered the Sea of Japan again until June 1945, when special mine detection equipment became available. Morton's death profoundly shocked the submarine force. Lockwood couldn't believe it. It just didn't seem possible that Morton and his fighting crew could be lost. I'd never have believed that the Japs could be smart enough to get him. Morton received 4 Navy Crosses, the last posthumous, the Army Distinguished Service Cross, and the Purple Heart. USS Morton, DD-948, a Forrest Sherman-class destroyer, was commissioned in 1959, sponsored by his daughter Edwina. A memorial stone stands on Cape Soya, Japan, near where Japanese gunners first spotted Wahoo, with an inscription in Japanese and English. When the Wahoo was lost, it was the highest-scoring submarine in the U.S. Navy. Forrest Sterling, the yeoman Morton transferred off Wahoo 45 minutes before her final patrol, lived to 91. He kept a promise to toast his shipmates every January 1st, making good on that vow at the millennium. His book, Wake of the Wahoo, remains the definitive enlisted man's account of submarine warfare. Dudley Mush Morton's 10 months commanding USS Wahoo represent a pivotal moment in naval history. He arrived at a time when American submarines were failing, hamstrung by cautious doctrine, defective torpedoes, and a command culture that blamed skippers for systemic failures. Through sheer force of personality, tactical innovation, and absolute fearlessness, Morton proved that aggressive surface attacks, harbor penetrations, and relentless pursuit could devastate enemy shipping. His partnership with Dick O'Kane created a new model of submarine command, one that trained subordinates for their own commands and produced the war's deadliest submarine ace. The Wahoo School of submarine warfare spread through the silent service, contributing directly to the strangulation of Japan's maritime lifelines. Morton's final transmission from his 4th patrol, another running gun battle today, destroyer gunning, Wahoo running, captured his spirit perfectly: humor under fire, confidence in chaos, and the understanding that war demanded aggression, not caution. When Wahoo vanished into La Perouse Strait, she took with her a commander who had fundamentally changed how submarines fight. His legacy lives on in every aggressive attack, every bold maneuver, every submarine commander willing to push beyond the boundaries of doctrine to accomplish the mission. As Morton told his crew before their first patrol together, Wahoo is expendable. He meant it, and in proving it, he showed the way to victory.